All right, we can call this meeting to order at 1:15 p.m. Sorry for the late start today. Was the only chaplain working at the hospital. Of course, you know, that's when everything goes for fluey. So, but I am here. We are here. My name is Laura Pangratz. I am the chairperson for the Bylaws Committee. And this is Friday, October 18th. That's for me, so remember it's Friday. And this is the Bylaws and Resolutions Advisory Committee meeting for October. So I'd like us to introduce ourselves, please. So my committee members, would you introduce yourselves, please?
Camilla Rogers.
Joe Peloso.
Keith Kaiser.
And Mr. Augie.
August Flengy on Teams.
For so that's on. Much and
Steve Gordley.
okay. Business for us making all right.
Yes.
Hearing no objections, we will continue to record this meeting. We've already done the introductions. Nobody is absent from our committee. We've done guests. So the approval of the agenda, I had sent that out to everyone, but is there anything that needs to be added to it?
Move acceptance of I like the agenda very much. It's short.
Okay. We try to keep them as short as possible, but all right. So is there, hearing no objections, the agenda is approved as presented?
Yep.
All right. Thank you very much. Next order will be to approve our September meeting minutes, which I have put up on the screen. Augie sent these out a while ago too. Our last meeting was September 13th. Miller was excused. I think you were the only committee member who was not here during for that meeting.
I'll move acceptance of the minutes. I wasn't here, but I read them pretty carefully.
Perfect. And does anybody see anything that needs to be corrected on the minutes? I'll scroll down here. Take them too far. Tell me when you're ready for me to scroll up.
Yep.
There's just a little bit of unfinished business there. Document. And then this is our discussion.
I second the motion.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor to approve the minutes as presented by Keith. Is there a second?
Sure.
Joe? Okay, thank you, Joe. Joe seconded the motion. For committee members, all in favor of approving the minutes as presented, please say aye.
I
Aye.
Any, perfect. Any opposed? All right, the minutes passed, and then Augie as clean copy that'll get posted and add the governance document to it, and then I can send that to Linda to have her add it to the website for us, okay? So,
Yes, I'll do that.
thank you. All right, so next up,
Oh, he's back.
do we have any public comments today?
I have none.
Okay, and Jim's not here. Let's see. Okay, so we'll close public comments. Chairperson's report. My report is that I have emailed all of our remaining meeting dates for January through July of 2025. She has approved them all. So the only one that I happen to notice that we may want to reschedule is not until February. I believe it's Valentine's Day. But I could bring Valentine's Day treats for everybody, but, so keep that in mind, and we can always, reschedule any of them as, whenever we don't have quorum, okay? So we did get that approved. I did email her to post today's agenda. And I had to request the Teams link, which she sent on Monday. I did attend the, September directors meeting in person. And talking to myself now, the draft of our annual report, because I believe I sent that to you all. My brain's a little, so then my, so then the next thing that I have to do would be to submit this annual report by October 31st. And the next director's meeting is October 26th. Okay? Is there any questions for me on that? Okay, good. All right. So, Steve, this is your opportunity as board liaison. If you have anything to report, while you're doing that, I'm going to pull up another thing.
Sorry, I'm putting the dates into my calendar. I don't have much to report. I note under the unfinished business, I had an opportunity to talk to council about the unnumbered F resolution. Legal is still looking at it. There are apparently some issues dealing with the way we have dealt with credit card charges in the past, and we change it to the future. We sort of need to find a way to insulate ourselves a little bit from future problems. That's an operational problem, but I don't know offhand whether or not that resolution will be on the agenda for our next board meeting. There was an email, and I said something to Bruce when I saw him. There's a history with all this, and I was going to. He says, no, the problem is on the operation side. We got to make sure we're in compliance with current law and that sort of thing. And so they may have it ready, they may not. I don't know, but
it's in the process.
It's definitely in the middle.
Process,
No question about it. I also will tell you, I believe that the golf committee, which met yesterday, and I did not make the meeting because I got tied up doing something else, but the golf committee, I believe, has at least had a annual report to be considered during their meeting. I don't know whether or not it was, but I just pass that on for whatever it's worth.
Okay.
Other than that, I don't have anything to add.
Sorry, have they lacked for leadership? Because that report looked like it was quite behind.
The golf committee?
Uh-huh.
I don't think they lack for leadership. The way I would put it, for what it's worth, is my observation has been both sitting in committee meetings and watching them on Teams, is that each committee operates very differently from any other committee. They are they're a good group, but I think they focus much more on the golf course. I mean, that's sort of, and to pick up on whatever else might be on their plate, sometimes it just sits for a while, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be my take, but I wouldn't characterize it as a leadership issue.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Is there anything else you want to add? Or is your report done, or does anybody have any questions for me?
Well, I think at the last meeting, I said this was my understanding of how the board liaisons are going to play out. That was officially announced at the last board meeting, so
Yay.
that's it.
We get to keep you.
Yes, it stuck with me for a while.
Very good. All right, wonderful. All right. At this point, I will rescind the Roberts rules just as we go through any of our the rest of our topics. If our guests would like to add anything, please let us know. If we have to vote on anything, I'll restart it. Okay. So under unfinished business, at that last directors meeting in September, they did officially presented and completed the second reading to remove the C14 Racket Sports Advisory Committee resolution and clarified that also means the committee. Okay, they reaffirmed their vote of 6-1 from the original vote back in April when they had presented it incorrectly as far as the process goes. But they finally got it on the agenda for this September meeting, and it was confirmed. So
the Racket Sports Committee is gone.
Correct. The Racket Sports Committee is gone and the resolution, C14 is gone. So I guess on our governance tracker, we'll have that noted that as of, what was it, September 13th?
I already
did
updated
we
it.
say? You've got it
Yeah,
in
I
there?
already updated.
Okay, I think we should leave the numbers there in case
We did.
some other future board wants to bring it back.
Well, we leave them in place just to account for the number,
Yeah.
if for no other reason, so.
Right, okay. So then the second one, I think, we should go ahead and just put, I should say, the budget and finance, which has, their committee is the one that is spearheading the unnamed F resolution that, Steve just gave us an update on, because originally it was on the September agenda, but then they amended that agenda at the beginning of the meeting to take it off. And at that point, it was noted that legal counsel had not completed their review in time for that meeting. So we'll just keep an eye out for when that one does get added to a director's meeting, whether it's October or November or whatever. But at least it's in the
Process.
yes, in the process of it. I'm going to recommend that for golf, aquatics, and ARC, C11, C15, and CO2, that we mark them as reviewed because there's been no additional communication with them. So no news is good news in the sense that we're going to assume that they're happy with their resolutions and are not recommending any changes. So that'll come off our agenda for next time. We still have the M09 topic to refer back to, which is about the search committee and that process there between our committee and the board of directors and all of that.
Was there a search committee this year at all?
No.
Okay.
And then, but because it's still specified in our documents, that's the part that has to be cleaned up and clarified. And whether it's to just make it more flexible in the sense that if you have a search committee, fine. If you don't, fine. But the way it's written, it needs to happen. But Keith had sent out, I can't remember what date you sent that out. It was fairly soon after our September meeting.
9/14.
Yeah, and I don't have that one pulled up yet. I might have to go find that before.
You, in your email, you included the Word version,
Okay,
which so if you have a Adobe version, like in that original email, I should have included the Adobe. Okay.
let me see if I can find that one. So while I'm looking for that one, I did want to, let me see if I can find that. But the Word one that I
Who was
sent out
that
is
sent
that.
to in September? Who was that sent to on September 14th?
Keep it out to all of us as a committee and ask for feedback.
iOS is not displaying it right, so I can't tell if this, I mean, it says 9/14, but it doesn't have the watermark, which just may be the iOS is not displaying it, but the font's all messed up and the spacing's all messed up, so
All right.
I don't know, and the form has exploded, so
Let me-
I don't know if this is the correct one. I mean, it's the version.
Well, on Teams, I have a hard time, I can't go back and forth with Windows to be able to go from a Word document to a PDF. So I've got to change everything into PDF.
Well, if I can, I think because you and I either talked or exchanged emails, we get a heads up from Linda, everything's got to be in for the board meeting by a certain date. So I reached out to Keith about this resolution. I think where we are is the committee has not voted on the version that you drafted. It went through, I think, 2 edits.
Mhm.
And so that's sort of where we are. Once the committee votes to approve it, I have to slap together a cover sheet and I
Right.
circulate it to the board and I'll send it to council as well. If I get it done this weekend for next week's board meeting, and no guarantee it'll make the agenda because council may say, I still want to review it. But
I think, Keith, if I remember seeing one of your emails come through, you were hoping that Camilla would be able to look at it because a lot of the stuff with references the secretary, and since you've been a former board of directors secretary, I don't know if you've had a chance to go back. I think you replied at some point you would look at it, but I don't know if you had a chance to. But is there anything on there that?
Yeah, it's his draft. That is correct. Yeah, that was really, we had pretty much agreed on the red lines for the document.
Mhm.
I don't think we voted on it, but not last time, at the time before that.
Yeah.
So last time was really more about just packaging it up with all the enclosures and drafts and red lines
Just give to.
for the board. However, when I looked back through it one last time,
Mhm.
the use of the word secretary is not consistent throughout the document. Some places it says association secretary, and some places it just says secretary, and other places it says Ocean Pine secretary.
Secretary of the association.
Right, so that's what I was looking for some feedback on. What should it say? And I can go back in and then make that consistent, but that was really the only question I had left with it.
Well,
Isn't
it's
that,
not an association secretary, it's just secretary to this particular group. Or are we looking at a broader scope?
No, it's
Look
the
at the board
secretary of the
secretary.
directors.
Oh, the board secretary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with our committee. This
Yeah, the
is.
board secretary.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
question. Can't you clarify someplace in the header the term secretary means board secretary? So you don't have to keep repeating board secretary,
That's a good idea.
I could.
which is easier for you. at this stage of the
Well, I mean,
game.
it's just as easy for me to go through a search and replace,
Mhm.
you know, in Word and just replace them all, but, I
Well-
remember on one of them, Cammy, you specifically pointed out, this has been several meetings ago, you said that should say, and I don't remember what you said, you know, instead of what it was, I think you said it should say association secretary, maybe that's the wording, whatever the proper title is of the board secretary. And so I changed some of them, and I thought I changed them all, but then,
Well,
again,
look
so
at the
all the
bottom one
highlights in here are the use of the
Yeah.
word secretary. So if
you
we
look
could
at
just
the
go
bottom
through
one,
those
it
real
says
quick.
assistant.
Okay,
Just go through all, start at the top, and let's just look at each place where it's highlighted, and make sure you agree with that, the way that's worded.
Okay, just check here, make sure. Okay, so here's the first page, second, and here's the first highlighted section.
I think this is one, Cam, where you said change that to association secretary. Is that right? Is that the proper title of the board secretary or no?
of the board
The
secretary?
board
Yes, this is
secretary.
all referencing the board of directors secretary.
Yeah.
Well, it's also in 6C.
Because you have the president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer of the board.
Go up to
Oh, then this one?
6C.
Did I miss one? Scroll up a
6C.
little bit.
How far?
6C.
Stop.
Right there?
I'm trying to get this comment that I made eked into my brain cells again.
Validation of eligibility should be a responsibility of association secretary. Yeah, I missed it.
I have to say, I mean, there's something in here about the association general manager as well. We only have one general manager.
Right.
We only have one secretary.
Well, no, we have the operational side secretary.
Right, but that's,
John has a secretary, right? The
John?
general manager has a secretary.
Yes,
well, Linda is designated as,
Title.
yeah.
I think, assistant
Director
secretary
or
or
something.
deputy
She's the-
secretary,
Yeah.
something like that. Because she would, in the absence of the secretary, provide the secretarial function for the board. It's
Yeah.
an operational secretary. President of secretary.
I'm really confused.
Well, what my point is, I don't know that we need to get hung up on this. There's a line in here about, I saw it about the association general manager. We only have one general manager. The best right now is we only have one secretary.
I agree, we don't need to get hung up on it. I just say, let's just pick something and I'll just make sure.
Yeah, I
Whatever
would
it is we
just
pick,
call
that they all
because
say that.
So you don't have to
frankly,
change it, keep changing it, Keith.
if you go back to,
Tell Keith what you want it to be.
Okay,
at some points, someone highlighted it
that was me.
about
But you're
signing
right.
where the secretary signs. I mean,
But if you don't know if you're not sure and you want to apply for the board, you need to know what secretary to contact.
there's only one secretary.
Well, so just remember,
there's
this document used to say Ocean Pines secretary, secretary of Ocean Pines, board secretary, association secretary. I mean, it used to have all like.
Which is, as long as the term is consistent throughout,
Right,
and I'm
Right.
assuming, although I haven't looked, it is consistent in the bylaws. If the bylaws designate the secretary in a certain term, I would use that term, I guess is what I'm saying.
that's a good call. So let's just make sure then that, so this is clearly the board secretary here, right?
Yes.
Whatever that term is,
Yes.
and I'll go pull it from the bylaws. So scroll down. Let's see if there's any other, so that, right, I'm sorry, go back up. So that's the board secretary as well?
Yeah,
Yes,
yes.
Okay, all right, so scroll down. You're right here, but it says secretary of the association. Is that the board secretary?
yes, it is.
Okay,
Yeah, it is.
okay,
Well, and the application that the candidate fills out on the second page says association secretary.
Yeah.
Want to pick up a package? You need to ask one of them, this is a meeting, just there should be a ballot there or something, or?
Yeah,
Okay, so that's the board.
Yes.
Okay, so go to the next one, for the next yellow. Because I'll do that, Steve. I'll just go see what the bylaws.
well, I mean, look at
And so
what,
here it says association secretary, so these are all the board secretaries.
They're all the board secretary.
Okay, so scroll down.
What's the assistant secretary office at the administration building? That one's clearly indicating somebody here. not
Where
the
you,
board.
where you reading
this,
that?
this is
That
the
next one
application.
Right there, that says.
Oh,
this is the
okay,
application.
assistant secretary.
Yeah, but it says at the administration building.
But if you go up in section 4, go up a little bit higher, right there, it says the association secretary. That's the term, this is in the application that the candidate fills out,
Association secretary?
association secretary.
Okay,
So then
alright.
it seems to me that would be the term to use.
so then is that wording down below where it says OPA assistant secretary?
Well,
Is that okay?
that's a separate designated person.
I know, so is that okay the way it
We can leave
is?
that one the same.
As far as I know it is, I mean.
Okay, that's good. Scroll down.
That's just for,
Okay, and
the
the
last little bit down there.
association received by association secretary, so that's the board secretary, right?
Mm-hmm.
But underneath of it, OPA
It's the same
secretary.
person, but that's the same
It's the
person.
same person, so I need to change that. What
You're
about
not, you're
the,
not gonna be able to change the form though. We,
oh, that's right, that's a part of the approved.
right, I would just leave that. If that, I
Okay.
mean, I can't, I honestly believe no one, if we ended up in a court of law, that is explainable. I mean, that's not, we would not lose a court case over this.
Okay.
So I would just leave that as
Leave
it
that
is. And above that, where it says the assistant secretary and the association secretary, those are two separately designated people.
Right, okay,
So I would just, in terms of what you want the resolution to say, it should be consistent with talking about the association secretary.
well, then I think we're okay then, because I think the major consistencies were down here, but up in the actual resolution,
Mhm.
I think I said association secretary, didn't
Yeah, you
I?
did.
Yeah.
Well, then we're good.
All good.
So then so then I guess then we need to vote on it and say that it's good, and then he can submit the package on the next roll call.
Yeah, I mean, if frankly, if council picks a nit over it, we'll address it at that point, but I don't
Okay,
think-
I just wanted to make
The only
sure
one that's not
that,
consistent with saying association first, association secretary is the one, here that says secretary of the association, but it's still implying and designated that it's the association secretary. You know what I mean?
well,
Well,
then
we can just
Well,
forward
that should
that,
be, that one should be changed. It
Yeah,
should
it
say
should be changed back.
secretary,
just say the
Association
association secretary.
okay, I'll change that.
that's an attachment A.
Attachment A, first paragraph. Okay.
Everything else said, everything else. All the other ones. Association
attachment
first, then secretary.
Well, and then if it's that one, I'll just fix that at the same time.
Okay.
Well,
And then I'll take the highlights off.
what
and then I'll-
do the other resolutions say? Aren't they all just secretary?
There's not a consistent format.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, there is no mandated format to use for resolutions, which makes me wonder what F's gonna look like.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting.
Yeah, okay, so I'll fix those two, I'll take the highlights off, and then I'll resend it out.
Thanks, Keith.
All right. Okay, so.
Oh, I'm gonna
we're
do-
Are
done
you
with
guys
that
gonna
one.
vote on it or what? I don't have to vote.
Yeah, so do we need
Do we
to,
need to vote then to
what-
update the draft that we?
well, we don't need, I don't think we need to vote on that, because we've been messing with it. I guess we would be voting on if we want to submit it to the board for consideration. I think that's what we'd be voting on, right?
Okay. So is there a motion on the floor by Keith?
I make a motion that after correcting these two
Just one
things that
second.
we just discussed, that we submit it to the board for consideration for
I'll
first
second
reading.
that. This has been going, yeah, we've been toying with this for a while. I think it's good.
Sorry, I didn't mean.
Hopefully he'll remember to knock. Give me 1 second. Okay, so
First, second,
okay, all right, so there is the motion on the floor, to, update, and forward to the board liaison, who will then forward this information to the directors and legal counsel for consideration,
for first reading.
right? For a
Yes,
first reading,
For first
okay.
reading.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
That's
All
all.
right, then the motion on the floor passes. After we reinstated Robert's rules, now we can rescind and,
Get it right.
I cannot, my brain is so tired, I can't, we can pause the Robert's rules. I can't think of the right word today. So that we can continue on the agenda then. Okay, now, I don't know if you wanted to, like the annual committee report, a little bit more discussion, but I the, we'll come back. There we go. Yeah. You know, got it. There it goes. Okay, there we go. All right, so this is a list all of their committee members when for all of their first. The board secretary, John Latham, is their board liaison. And basically, we don't have to go through all of this part, but this is where they documented, the official numbers and all of that. Then it goes through, they do state the statistics for all of the different ballots, and like I thought it was very interesting that ballots returned by the post office as undeliverable was 122. But it goes through and lists all of that. So this is their election recap. I don't know how many blanks in there, but they documented their process.
I wonder how we keep our database up to date when people sell their homes and move.
That's a good question.
Because there's no requirement for them to come notify the admin.
You would think they changed their address with post office.
Well, it's an ongoing problem because we have part-time residents.
Yeah.
I mean, as I understand it, staff periodically sort of sends out, various publicity documents. Sure, your office has your it's a little bit of a roll of the dice.
Yeah.
I mean, this problem comes up every year. Some are returned, some call and say I didn't get it, and they fix the problem. So I mean, there's nothing for us to do about that.
I wonder if there's a way for the local realtors, who sell property in Ocean Pines to notify, notify John's team that, hey, FYI, this property sold. You might want to contact them to see if it's under a different name.
I mean,
Some way to get feedback.
they're not licensed just in Ocean Pines, so statute requiring it, but it's really has nothing to do with us. I mean, it just, just like I said, it's more of a roll of the dice more than anything else.
Well, another way to look at it, I think, is to just kind of mentally track how many there are that are undeliverable and see if there's a huge spike or a huge downturn. And it's probably the trending is really what we're looking for.
Yeah, but you won't know that until you look at the
Until a
numbers
couple
for
of
each
years.
year.
Yeah, right.
Because it's the election committee is the one who gets the return envelope saying, person doesn't live here anymore, it's deliverable or whatever term you want to use. And when you come in to get your ID, you're sort of you fill out a form. I mean, I did when I moved here, and I think you're asked, as I recall, is this your permanent address or not? That's my recollection. But it's, the elections committee deals with it. They just do.
So this highlighted section is where they mention our committee, because they talk about the bylaws then, and they start that conversation there. And then it goes up there, abilities of use of day eligibility date and two. So I just
So
want
that's
to bring
not-
that to our attention.
That's not action for us. That's
No, it's
action for the
not.
board.
Yeah.
That's the board.
Because if the board wants to do that, then we're talking about a
Referendum.
referendum.
I will add that at the time of the discussion relating to the contract with the current vendor for the election, I don't remember if it was this vendor or one of the other contenders, but I think it was this vendor, was going to charge us $8,000 for the observable count.
Right.
But even if we said we didn't want the observable count, we're still going to get charged the $8,000. Maybe it's $7,000. I don't remember the exact amount, but it's something like that. And the general consensus among the board members, as I recall, there was no vote taken, so I'm going to take this as the gospel. But my general sense among the board members was that the last turnout for the observable count was so low. Why would we bother?
There's only 3 or 4 people.
Right. I think something like that. And some people watched on Teams because it's available on Teams as well. But I mean, it was a very low number. But that really doesn't mean much because in order to address both the I'm pretty sure the observable count is in the bylaws. That's my right. But definitely changing the date is in the bylaws.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
This
you could, in theory, I don't know.
Well, this gets back to the discussion we had last time about it's been 2 years, and even though it's not a requirement for the bylaws, there, on some sort of periodicity, we should be looking at the bylaws to make sure there's not something we should tweak or update.
Well,
And here's just another example of something that could be something to be updated in the bylaws. And if that's going to happen, then any other tweaks or updates to it,
Should be
or,
done at the same time.
what was it, technical and conforming?
Technical
and conforming updates?
I mean, look, here's what I would suggest. And this is, again, for what it's worth, I can send an email to John Latham, who's the liaison with the Elections Committee, and say to him, look, this is what the Elections Committee said. I would suggest Bylaws Committee has no problem working with the Elections Committee, but the issues that they're raising to be addressed require a referendum. And that's really the responsibility of the board. If you want us to either draft something for the board, that's fine, we can do that, but it's got to go through legal, it's going to go through the Elections Committee, it's got to go through us. You know, you guys got to decide what you want to do. I will also tell you, because what is unclear at the moment is whether or not there will also be a referendum dealing with financing the South Fire Station. I mean, we don't have any final numbers yet.
Right.
But it could potentially exceed that threshold.
Well, I mean, if depending upon how it's decided to be financed, we may need a referendum, is the point, without getting into whatever the numbers are. So, because I don't think anybody knows what the numbers are. You know, at some point, this could all dovetail into, well, we've got the candidate election, we've got the referendum on the South Station, we've got these board, but as to the, so I mean, I can do that. I mean, I don't have a problem doing that. As to the other question that you're raising, which is, are there other matters within the bylaws that need to be addressed? You know, that's committee one to go, I guess. I mean, that's where you're, you know, to do after going through what we went through 2 years ago. It still has to go back. We offered them something, so that's sort of the task. I mean, there's several steps here, but as to what's in the Elections Committee report, I have no problem in, you know, telling John, this is where the committee met, this is what they're asking me to do, I'm doing this to you. You need to talk to the Elections Committee, but understand that the change that they're recommending really is the responsibility of the board.
Right.
If you want us to draft something for the board, we can do that. That's, you know.
So that's where I was waiting for you to say that. I don't want to draft anything until the board's talked about this. Because if the board says, no, we're not changing it, then we will have done that work for
No,
nothing.
that's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
I agree with you that we're more than
I'm
happy.
volunteering the committee
Yeah.
to do that if the board tells us to do
Yes,
that.
yes,
Yeah, I
that's
would
correct.
have to agree with Keith on that one. That
Yeah.
seems like
I just want to make sure that,
exercise.
Well, because we don't want to do all this work and then it sits and does nothing.
I think the
again
one
for 2 years.
advantage you
Yeah.
have is you can go back through the records 2 years ago, the things that we suggested that didn't get into the bylaws. or
I
the
think we should go
ordinance.
back and look at that. 'Cause
Yeah, I
there
think
were
you should.
there were several things, like,
Yeah.
for example,
Right.
we recommended that the sign issue be from based on early voting.
Right,
Right.
And for whatever reason, that didn't get in
Right.
the board didn't approve that. Well, now it's come up, just like we thought it was gonna come up. So I think there's some things like that, like, I agree that we could go back and say, you know, we recommended this last time and
Mhm.
we told you so.
Mhm.
and when you cite Maryland law, that was 30 years ago, that didn't have early elections 30 years ago.
Right.
But just in general, I like, what you suggested.
Right,
I like that idea, because, I mean, that's, the bottom line is that that's not action for us, that's action for the board.
right.
Yeah.
They need to talk about it, and if they want to do something about it,
We've
And-
acknowledged that they mentioned us, but
correct.
we need
And
to
if they
let
want us to
them know that
draft
the
something up,
true-
we can work.
Right, the
They-
true
And that
process.
picked the
mission really
wrong-
seemed to be collaborative rather than making any kind of decision on our part to take back to them.
I'm sorry.
That last paragraph that Laura's referring to really made it sound like the action plan, coordinate with the bylaws. That really sounded like a collaborative recommendation rather than one that required any further action on the part of the committee,
On which committee? Our committee or the elections?
the elections committee.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I
Look
was,
at that as,
Right.
they
It's
want us
wrong.
to do this.
that's what I was concerned
Yeah.
about. Was that
It is.
something for us to give to
Yeah.
the board to talk about?
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is, that's not necessary. The board can just read what you wrote right there,
Mhm.
and they can talk about it just based on that
That's
paragraph.
right, there's further discussion
Doesn't
back
work,
up
yeah.
there,
Right.
I don't have it on this screen, but,
Committee
you know,
can't do
it's all
anything.
the information's there about why they're recommending those.
Because the
two
actual, the actual changes in the bylaws, I mean, we're only talking about changing a few words. You know, that
Yeah.
draft's not gonna be helpful. This basic summary here is what's helpful.
things. Right.
Yeah.
Well, the issue of the 35 days is probably a legitimate concern based upon the timing, because,
Seems like that came up before.
well, again,
Well,
2 years ago, when we had that 2 to 3 week break between when the ballots were supposed to go out and before people got to see them, because the prior vendor
Yeah.
Right.
basically was overloaded with other matters. Nobody knew it. The issue that the board had to confront was to change the deadlines relating to the vote and ultimately about the annual meeting, because frankly, the annual meeting is the bell cow. I mean, everything dates back from that,
Yeah.
which I don't, so I have my own opinions on, but, it does seem to me that the key might be, well, I mean, without going into the substance of it, the bottom line is, if the board wants us to address the problem, which the elections committee correctly identifies as a problem, then the board has to tell us to do that, or to tell the elections committee to do it. I don't care which, doesn't make a difference, or we can do it together. Again, I would indicate to John in my email that bylaws committee, having discussed this, is prepared to, upon being told by the board to take some action, to do it either on its own or collaboratively with the elections committee.
Correct.
How we work that out.
Yeah, because I'm sure they're gonna want the lawyer to chime in on this, like, you know, the lawyer may come back and Gus, I know it's a pain in the butt, but I don't recommend you do that for Brian.
Well, he might, yeah.
He might,
Yeah,
right? So, yeah, I agree with what you just said there.
The bigger issue, as I say, was based upon the contract that I think I'm right about this, I'd have to go back and look, was we were gonna get charged for the observable count, whether we had it or not. Nobody really saw why we were gonna have it, but the vendor was gonna give us a break on the contract to take it out, so we left it. I mean,
Okay. So,
Know that?
I think
I mean,
so. This
I
was
don't think we need to
not,
vote on it. It wasn't an action item.
this
Yeah.
wasn't, right, this wasn't an actual.
and I'll CC Laura,
request.
and I
So,
can
I just
CC
happened,
elections
I
committee
can't remember
chair.
how I got it, I don't know, I think Steve, did you send it to me? I don't know, somebody sent it to me.
No, but that's good. I'm glad you
But
brought that up.
because it said our name in it, our committee, I wanted us to be able to go, is this something for us to do?
Mhm.
But, I think we've clarified that, I think and I don't think we have to vote on it, it's just to be able to say, can you
Yeah.
reach out to the other board liaison for the elections committee and explain that we're not opposed to working with them, however, that action
Well,
is really done by
I mean,
the
the
board first.
the ultimate responsibility lies with the board.
Correct, right.
I mean, the elections committee could
And if they
suggest this
tell
is
us
what,
to work
the
together,
elections committee could say bylaws should do this. Bylaws doesn't take any orders from the elections committee, it takes it from the board, so the board's got to decide what to do, and that's
Right.
what the way I would tell
but I
them.
don't think we have to make an official vote on that. Okay, it'll be documented in our notes, hopefully. So, all right, so you want to look at ours, report then? I believe I got all the committee members listed correctly. Myself, Keith, Augie, added in Camilla and Joe, and I did have to include Pam because she was part of this reporting period. But then, as you note under the comment, I put when she resigned, so, okay. So section 2, section of major activities, and basically I used last year's to kind of go through. I think I changed the dates correctly. This would be from October 23 to.
Question on item 3, wasn't it in this reporting period that you added the tracker to the minutes of the meeting to give more visibility to it? Or was that
What did we
last?
do before? Did we send the meeting minutes out
I think that was
before?
this year, I agree.
I think it was this year.
Well,
Yeah.
the
Yeah, you
minutes,
should
we
include that.
started.
You put the tracker, you added the tracker to the minutes.
Yeah, but did we do the minutes? Did we send out the minutes before?
Yeah, the minutes have always
minutes are
been
posted on the website.
Okay, so it was just,
We
it
added the tracker
was just adding the tracks.
Right.
to
Okay.
create more visibility.
That was this year.
It was create
Yep.
visibility as a
That
reason to
was,
do
that's,
it.
because I was sitting here thinking, did we
Yeah.
do anything different?
I couldn't remember in my mind whether it was last year we started or this
No,
year.
I think you're right. I think it was
Because
this
you've
year.
been doing the tracker for the last 2
All right,
years.
so I can't put it up there because it's a different window, but I do have the Word document up. So do you want me to add a sentence in
Anyway,
there to that?
I have
first
no
one?
vote, so I'm just, that was a comment.
I think we should
Yeah.
have it in there.
Robert's rules were suspended, right?
Yeah. I think
Okay.
so.
You did, you suspended it.
I don't want
after
to
the-
get you in
after the
trouble.
I know, we don't want to get in trouble, but.
vote.
So how would you like me to word it then?
Well, what about under number 1? If we said that this includes the tracker, the governance tracker for review of whatever,
For visibility.
for visibility, thank you.
I think that's,
Well, actually,
if that's the reason you
I think
included
that
it. In the past,
the
nobody
committee
saw it.
sends an updated tracker to board members once a month. I mean, that's
Yeah.
really what you do.
Right.
You want to put
Post-meeting.
that as number
Yeah.
4? Number 4.
I would just add
Separate
another
one?
sentence to number 3.
I think
Okay,
it's
I
an
think
addition to
three.
3.
Yeah,
That's
all
fine.
right, so we're gonna.
Anyway, that's what I'd suggest.
There you go.
But Steve had the right words.
This
Oh, Steve.
document tracking form was, I should say, during this reporting period has been consistently sent to the board of directors on a monthly basis. And the
It's also put on the website, right? So it's not just going to the board.
Yeah,
has been
that's right. The website and
Well,
the,
the minutes are posted on the website, so
Included
this is attached to the
on the
minutes here.
website,
it's good.
or I should say, on the OPA website with the approved minutes. That sound right?
That sounds good.
I know I can't put it up there for you
No.
to actually read it, but I can reread it here. All right, so is that okay then for section 2? Are we done with that part?
Trying to think if there's anything else we do this year? Any big? It was really kind of routine stuff.
Well, we get treats at every meeting.
That's true.
That we did what?
How about the spring kickoff event that
Oh, the
folks
spring
appeared at?
kickoff,
Or does that fall under problems encountered? Huh?
spring kickoff event?
No,
Or the
oh,
treats?
No, the
Yeah,
treats.
no,
Treats.
August
Maybe all
suggested,
part
put a 5 in there and
We
just add
could do
a.
a number 4 that
Mhm.
says we participated,
Mhm. That we held at a table, we answered questions, we educated the public on where to find the governance documents. Good call, Augie. What else did we do?
I missed it.
Yeah, but you knew where to look.
What else did we do? We argued with Steve a lot. What else?
But not undeservedly.
Huh?
Not undeservedly.
No, it was healthy debate. Healthy and robust, what's the words?
We had a table and answered questions.
What did I say to Joe? What did I tell you one day? Someone said something which is more than I get from my colleagues on the board.
How is that job going for you, Steve?
I will send out a final
We're
draft of this
still
before
recording.
we email it out, so you all can double check me. So I've added that. Is there anything else? What did you say after the spring kickoff?
Oh, we were
Was there
joking about
something?
your
Oh.
snacks. I can't think of anything else.
Well, I figure if I feed you, you'll come to the meetings, right? And you have been pretty consistent about that. It's also the
Oh, I
old
think-
PTA person in me that likes to.
I think everybody come anyway because it's a good meeting.
So,
Yeah,
I'll try to forewarn you if there's a meeting where I don't have a snack, you know?
I guess
So,
that's it. I can't
all
really
right,
think of
so
anything else.
I added then the spring kickoff. We don't think there's anything else we need to add.
I think it's good.
Section 3 is problems encountered and assistance required. I still said there were no serious problems for this committee during the past year. It hasn't moved up, that interruption.
The only thing I would say there, and it could just be me, but you know, when the new lawyer took over, been much more proactive, much more involved. I mean, in the past, the legal review of things was always kind of an afterthought,
Mhm.
and sometimes it was because we recommended it, right?
Mhm.
Whereas this guy is looking at stuff
Mhm.
before we even know that it's an issue. And I think all that's good. I just sometimes feel like, I think in the past, maybe we got it worked out now, maybe it's not an issue, but I think there were a couple times in the past where I felt like we had done work on stuff that then the lawyer said, nope, and rewrote, and it felt like wasted time for us.
And we
And
didn't
maybe
really
that's not
get
the case
feedback.
anymore because he's
Yeah.
pretty much doing stuff before we even get a chance to look at it. So maybe it's not an issue, but I
Right,
don't know, it almost felt,
I think that's gotten better.
Yeah.
So you think Bruce is doing a better job than we had previously?
oh yeah,
Yes,
he's,
because
Okay.
we would
he
ask-
literally rewrites stuff. I
we
mean,
would recommend that
Yeah.
people look at it, and then you never heard back really truthfully.
Oh,
you
yeah,
know,
he's,
unless someone from the board.
he's much more proactive.
Shared that information, but we never really got true feedback from the previous council.
Well,
now
Jeremy.
that doesn't mean that we always see
No.
eye to eye,
Right,
but Mike, and that's okay. Because, you know, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not gonna think of everything the lawyer's gonna think of, but I just don't want our committee to spend time working on something and then go to the lawyer and they're like, nope. I'd rather that the lawyer provide
Look at
an
it
opinion first.
Jeremy was just too overstretched. And he didn't, and I'll tell you, before Steve's time on the board, when I was on the board, people called Jeremy about every little thing. And if I were him, in my practice, I would have been so freaking overwhelmed. I really would have. He's a nice guy, he was a bright guy, but it was really tough. And I actually would go on record as saying that even though Bruce Bright kept me on the witness stand for 3 hours during that fiasco that we had, I do have to say that I have a new appreciation for him. And I told him that.
but the new council has been a little bit proactive when we've sent something to the board through our liaison to have legal look at it, then he's actually taken the time and sent back some feedback.
I agree.
you know?
I think it's gotten a
So I
lot better,
think
so maybe
that's
it's not an
a
issue
problem
anymore.
right now,
Yeah.
yeah, so I don't think we have to include that.
I can't really,
Um,
what else do you have on there?
Section 4 is request for items to be included in the next OPA budget. So I keep it in there because we are one of the consistent committees that does use Teams and records our meetings that if they ever got to a point where they didn't want to include the expense of having the virtual option, whether it was a Zoom account or Teams or whatever, we're recommending that they keep that up, because otherwise, we don't really have expenses here for us, other than the time that it's not billed directly to us, but you know what I mean, from
Well-
legal counsel looking at our stuff, I don't know how that all works.
So I would say, and I brought this up before, we do a lot of office work
Mhm.
that there is an expense to, but we suck it up. And I don't know, do all committees do that? You know, like, paper, our own personal paper, our own printers, our own ink. You know, I have the software programs that are primarily used. I got Adobe
Help us,
Pro.
yeah.
I've got, you know, Microsoft Office, you know, that we use to do this stuff with. And I'm gonna be gone
In a year.
next September. So,
Yeah.
you know, does somebody else have all those tools? I'm gonna use all that stuff, and if not, who's gonna provide those services? I think there's a little bit, and I don't know, maybe all committees do this, maybe all committees spend their own money out of their own pocket
Right.
to do their functions, but in this particular committee, especially when we were doing the bylaws,
Mhm.
preparing for that, whew, went through reams of paper and, you know, ink cartridges and stuff for us to, you know, to do that stuff. And I know that Jim has a filing cabinet,
Mhm.
you know, full of documents, where, you know, he's archived, you know, his work on the committee and Ocean Pines, and probably an archive that should be saved and, you know, treasured.
Mhm.
But I worry about that,
Let me see how we have it worded.
Yeah, you have software that nobody else has.
yeah, like, because, for example, a lot of these resolutions,
We can't edit.
they're not in an editable form. Nobody seems to have they just have an Adobe version where at some point somebody converted it. And some copy machines will do that. You can stick them on a copier and it'll convert it to an Adobe file, which is great, except when you want to edit it. And then you need Adobe Pro to convert it back into an editable document. And I've been doing that for us. I've been the one
Right,
converting them.
yes, yeah.
Because I happen to have that software for another reason.
Is Adobe Pro, is that, Microsoft charged you for all their different.
Adobe Pro now is a subscription. You used to be able to just buy it.
Right.
Now it's a subscription.
Well, it may be that you
So do
may
you
want
wanna
to
add a
say
line
there
I think
at
so.
the end, you know,
Huh?
I
that,
think so.
the committee may find itself in the position where it would need to buy certain subscriptions. What do we want to say, data processing?
Well, do we want to,
computers?
do we want to say that, or do we want to say that,
Do we have access to?
yeah, if there are people who are already employed by Ocean Pines who
If we
are,
sent them,
who can do administrative type work, can we have access to those people?
Well, I would
For
say,
some of this stuff.
for what it's worth, my experience when I first got on the board was that there were a couple of times where, you know, I would say either to Linda or to Josh, you know, I can't edit this. You know, I have an Apple, so, you know, but I, you know, I can't make edits to this, you know, and they could convert it so that
Yeah.
I could. Now, you know, if we're not gonna raise the specter of having to buy a subscription or whatever from time to time that we want to get compensated for, then, you know, we might be able to just sort of talk to Linda quietly and see if she, you know, because it didn't happen that often. It may have happened 3, maybe 4 times.
But would there be any harm in putting a line in the budget for exactly this? For being able to purchase supplies by somebody perhaps on this committee who does that and doesn't mind doing it or wants to do it for some odd reason?
Well, that's what I was trying to come up with. It was a sentence that would say that, you know, the committee may have to consult with operations about obtaining certain
Converting
necessary
documents.
subscriptions or something like that.
Yeah, I would not recommend, that we pursue you know, like a license for Adobe Pro for the committee. Because then somebody's gotta be trained how to use it, you know, it becomes a whole big thing, right?
And then as we move off. the
Yeah,
committees
yeah,
and
it
stuff,
becomes a problem as
who
we
are
move
you
around,
sending
come and
it
go.
to? Yeah.
The
But
problem I saw
operations
was,
has that.
no, I'm with you on that. The problem is, right now, committees aren't supposed to talk to the operational people. So if we have permission to talk to the operational people
Well, yeah,
for this purpose,
Gotta go through
right,
that.
but all we're saying in this report, all that we're saying in this report is in the future.
right,
You're
in the
done with
future,
this.
right, we're good till
In the
next September.
Right, we may have to approach operations so that one member of the committee is licensed under their subscription.
But then you still gotta get trained how to use it, that's gonna be a cost.
Well, okay, I mean,
Well, what
we'll
you're,
fall into that mud puddle when we get there, but I mean, I think all we're trying to do is say to the board, you know, we may, you know, this may be a problem in the future. And so I think if you keep it sort of worded, keep
Alright,
it broadly
so-
worded,
yeah,
you
it
know,
will be a
we
problem.
can at least turn around and say, hey, we told you this was gonna be an issue.
So if I
Right.
write, the committee would like to note that in our committee work, there are times when software is needed in order to update/edit documents in order to produce a red line item. We're not, I want them to understand, we're not changing things. We just need to be able to get in there to show you what our suggestions are. right?
Currently, committee members volunteer their personal resources
So it
toward
says-
that end.
Right, so then we can say,
When
there
that
may be
goes
a need
away,
to request
it's gone.
assistance from the administration staff to assist with this process. Currently, committee members are
Using their own resources and time.
volunteering use of their own software to accomplish these tasks.
What we're really talking about is converting the existing resolutions back to a Word document so you can redline them. You're the only one that has software for it.
Well, even if that's the case, not everybody has Word. He doesn't have Word.
Well, I don't have it on my Mac. I do have it on my Ocean Pines computer, but frankly, I don't really, you know,
To work on it.
raise this before with the board members. I don't like to use Word on that. It's, to me, it's not a very reliable little laptop.
Well, and the reality of it
They
is it's becoming less and less common for people to have desktops or laptops. I mean, you know, this is the wave of the future, big pads and tablets. And not that you can't do this kind of work on something like that, but it's way harder. So you can't even, I don't think it's fair to assume that somebody would even have a desktop or a laptop capable of even loading the software on and using it. My whole thing is, they just need to know that there is,
So we're volunteering.
especially during times of change, significant administrative resources that this committee uses and that are currently being provided by the committee volunteers. But at some point in the future,
Those
there
volunteers.
will need to be a means by which the committee can make use of whatever available resources already exist within Ocean Pines to get some of this work done.
Well, I thought that's sort of what Linda, what
Yeah.
Lauren said.
That's it.
Is what?
I think.
I thought that's what you had just sort
Yes.
of written.
That's what she was typing
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, I think that, again, I think all you want to do is be able to say, you know, hey, we
It's-
told you this could be coming up, you know, whether or not you read it or not, we don't care. We told
Well,
you this.
I think we should say it will be coming up next year at this time. What we should say.
Because I bribed him with treats.
We got a year to
Submit
figure
that
this out.
Third
You
year.
got till September.
We got till September 25 to figure this out.
As if anybody's gonna read this.
Yeah.
Not to be
Yeah,
offensive.
you're right.
You
You're
don't
right.
want, you don't
But
want us to ask.
the difference
for an
is it's on
extended
Absolutely
special
Well, that's why I said, just
year.
take her
No,
sentence, leave it there, we can say,
no.
that's what we told you, this was gonna
Well,
happen.
I'm next after him,
That'll be my
but
Keith.
anyway,
Keith,
so, well,
Keith, you could ask for 1 year extension.
he just said he doesn't want to
I
do
just
that.
said no.
So, all right, so let me just repeat this to you.
I'm just trying to help.
The committee would like to note that in our committee work, there are times when software is needed in order to update/edit documents in order to produce a redlined item. There may be a need to request assistance from the administration staff to assist with this process. Currently, committee members are volunteering use of their own software to accomplish these tasks. And as the committee members and their terms change, this option may not be available to this committee moving forward.
There you go.
Good.
Okay,
Sign it off.
Good.
all right, section 5. Section 5 is recommended actions for board action. It is recommended to continue to confirm that the association is informed of legislative changes affecting our the current OPA governance documents and a process going forward to stay concurrent with all applicable state laws. Do I include that last sentence that's
Still applicable.
I know, right? There are still some lingering questions.
Feels like that's been on there for 3 years.
I'm pretty sure it has been. I think Jim put it on there first and I've just been
I think
moving
so.
it, you
Which
know?
one?
That MO6 sentence, the last one on section 5.
Yeah.
There's still lingering questions about MO6.
Yeah.
Yes.
So is there anything else to add to that? section?
Oh, 6.
I mean, do we want to echo the election committee's
Statement on.
statement? I mean, do we want to say the recommendation from the board
I think you sort of capture that.
about MO6?
Well, I'm not sure that I would say MO6. There are still lingering questions,
Take out the actual number and say.
relating to our, what's the word we want to use? Conforming our election practices with the bylaws. That's really what we're sort of, that's
Yeah.
really where we are at.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So take out the reference to, and because you can leave search committee and elections in there. Because the search committee is still an open item for now. So just say, conforming our election practices with our current bylaws or with our bylaws or something like that.
And what was the word you said? Conforming?
Conforming our election practices with our governing documents. I guess you could leave it at that if you wanted to.
Yeah.
That sort of makes everything come into, then we can sync up the bylaws to the resolutions and sync up the resolutions to the bylaws, whatever.
So go.
I'll send out this as a draft again, so in case I didn't hear correctly and type in, but I've added, I took out then the M06 and just said some lingering questions about search, I guess I should word that one.
Conforming our election practices with our governing documents.
That's good, Steve.
That was good.
About the.
Okay.
Okay, so that put in. There are still some lingering questions about conforming our election practices to our governing documents. And then in parentheses include search committee and election, or take that part out that.
Just say and search committee.
We already talked about elections, so you just say and search committee.
Search committee.
That should be considered.
Yeah.
So take the
Committee.
parenthetical out and strike everything after committee. So and election comes out, so it should.
All right, I'm sorry, repeat it one more time.
There's still some lingering questions about conforming our election practices to our governing documents Well, you may want to see,
Period.
see search committee in parentheses,
Okay,
but I think you can strike and election. But you're already saying that in the sentence itself, so.
Bob, you counted these up last time. Is that number right? 32 active resolutions?
No. I have a question when we get there. And I'll give it back to you and you can verify.
yeah, I'll send this out as
I-
a Word document so that you all can make sure I've worded things correctly. All right, so last section is the recommendations for committee work for us, beginning October of 2024 through September of 2025. Now, I did not go through and double check and count. Maybe Bob, you were doing that. Last year's, we said 33 active resolutions. I took one out since we know one had been rescinded, but,
Okay. Robert's rules are suspended, right?
yes, correct. Robert's
Okay.
rules are clearly suspended, so,
Okay.
would you,
What I counted again, I went through it last night just to make sure. There's a total of 38. 5 of them have been suspended, so that gets us down to 33. Of the 33 that are remaining, 3 of them that were suspended came out of the board, and 2 of them came out of committees. So right now what I have is the board has 19 active and the committees have 14 active. That gets us to 33.
And is that you're not counting that unnamed resolution?
I'm not counting that because that doesn't
And you're not
exist. till it
counting,
appears.
okay, so.
you're
what
not
was the
counting racket
total?
and sports, right?
Oh,
C14?
well, that's part of the 5 coming out. The 5 of them are, if you took the 38 and took the 5 out, you get down to 33. So
Okay.
there's 5 of them that have been suspended or rescinded. Doesn't matter. We're keeping the count there. to
So
just
then
keep
that
track.
number should be
So the number should be 33. The board has 19 and the committees have 14. Now, I don't know how many of the committees, of the board of those 19 are past due. That we could count them pretty quickly, I guess.
Did we say how
Keith?
many were passed through for the board of the 19?
There's my scribbled worksheet. That's why I didn't have yours current one, but I used that one there. So I counted all of them up and then I marked the committees. So
What piece of
only,
paper are we on right now?
We're on.
You're a number
towards-
1
towards the
of
last,
section 5
Okay.
on the count.
under section 6.
Yeah, unless I missed something, Keith. But I knew the number was wrong. I wasn't sure why it was wrong, so I went
Well,
last
I
night.
had put, it was originally 33
Yeah.
active resolutions that
Well,
I had up there.
The
And
30,
I took it one out because I
Yeah.
figured,
Well,
oh,
for what it's worth, the only one that I see that is up for review
for the
is
committee,
F02.
for the board,
Yeah,
everything else is current for the board.
everything else, it looks like it's either 25 or 26. Maybe I'm missing it, but now the committees are different,
Yeah,
but with
well,
the board, hold on.
okay, so this is more for us.
Oh, there's one for the search committee, okay. So search committee is still pending,
yeah.
obviously, and then the only other one that I'm seeing is F02, annual budget development.
All right, so
November 24.
number 1, then I should have continue with our regular review of the 33 active resolutions. That's the number I have there.
Yes.
I
That's
just
the number I got.
counted 32.
Huh? You counted 32?
Is it because we
How do
got
I
rid
get
of C14? Or no? Because this is not, that number should be the total
Right,
that we're looking at,
the total active.
right? I feel like it should be 32 there. Then of the active
I count
resolutions,
32.
19 are the responsibility of
Total
the
active.
board.
Oh, total active, 32?
Yeah, total active, 32.
So a total of 32, and then of those active resolutions,
How many of them are
19
the board?
are the responsibility of the board.
Yeah, I counted 19.
Well, just subtract the
Because
number
if you
from the
look at the
committee ones.
rescinded and inactive.
All the committee
some of
ones.
those,
Yeah,
three
all the
of them
C
are
ones.
boards.
Well, there's one for the board, C01 is the boards. But from C02 through C15 is the committees.
17,
Huh?
18. I just counted 18 for the board. Would you say 17?
Where's my sheet there?
You said 17?
Yeah, I'm saying the board has 19, the committees have 14
2, 3, 5, 6.
that are active.
8.
All right, so maybe I can share. Oh, wait. Of the active resolutions, 18 are the responsibility of the board? Is
9.
that what we're saying?
I'm saying of the active, 19 are responsible for board.
13,
Did you count the one that is for the board president in that count?
14,
See,
Yes,
nine.
that's board. Yeah, I
Okay.
counted that as part of the board.
Yeah. And then
18,
of those
19.
19,
19, is that what you said?
yeah.
19,
Okay, I agree with 19.
19 and
Alright, so then-
14.
Yes.
Of
19 and
those,
14.
We have the next comment is of those 19, then how many are past due to the board?
Oh, for the board?
One?
I thought
None.
Steve was just saying like two.
Steve is saying,
M09.
Well, yeah, but that would be, in my view, pending. And the only other one that's even due in 24 is F02, which I don't think I've even looked at.
Oh, wait a minute, what's C0? My C02 is highlighted.
Yeah, but that's not for the board. See, it says responsible.
Oh, for the chair, I'm sorry,
Yeah, yeah.
yes.
Yeah, so
So for the
the only,
board,
of the C resolutions, the only one where the board has responsibility is C01,
Okay,
which is
The rest are the actual
Which
committees
was
that I
addressed-
agree with that.
Yeah,
is not up for renewal
C01.
till April of 26. So if you go under scheduled review date, the only one that I see, I could miss it, but the only one that I see, other than search committee, is F02,
Okay,
which is due in November for review.
okay. So for the board ones, am I saying
you're
two
saying-
are past due? Okay, now, we have not split it before in there and said that there are, of those 32 that you said, that 14 of them are committee related.
Yeah, 14
we
are
didn't-
committee related, 19 are board related.
Well, do you need to
Do I
leave
need
that?
to put
Huh?
that in there?
Do you need to say that?
I don't think so. I'm
I-
just clarifying.
I think the reason it was in last time is the board was way behind, but now you're current, so it's almost a moot
We moved all
point.
those others last year.
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Because the committees are the same way with the adjustment you made to the tracking form. If they don't reply within the 90
Right.
days after the second notice, you
Right.
consider that they don't have
So
a change.
We don't have
It's
to
up to
include the
them.
committee stuff in there.
Right.
the
Yeah, I
other
think you could
committee
almost
stuff. So
eliminate
number
that.
2 is review the new bylaws to see if there are amendments that affect resolution. And 09, search committee has been previously identified as a resolution affected by the bylaws amendments. That's still a carryover from when I think the bylaws was all, right?
Yeah, well,
Or is that just basically saying that we're keeping an eye on things, is that right?
I think it would be helpful to add in here that I agree there's only one coming due for the board, which is in November, but there's 15 coming due for the board next year.
In 2025?
2025, I just counted 15. That's a lot.
They need to put them on a tracker.
That's the problem, because you made an adjustment on all of them at one time, and now they all get due rather than spread out over the year. That's the risk that you have.
15 coming due next year.
And that's the problem we were trying to maintain with committees, so you don't have them all due at the same time, because it puts a burden on this group in trying to process them if they all want to make changes. Yeah,
Yeah, I count 15 that are coming due at some point in 25 that are responsibility of the board.
Okay, so
That might be
we can
worth
add a
mentioning.
sentence that just says there will be 15 additional board resolutions that will be up for consideration in 2025
For review.
for review.
For
Yeah,
review.
but it,
For-
okay, I don't know, say what you want, that's fine. But keep in mind that due to the election taking place in August, this board may not have all 15 to consider.
Oh,
So I mean,
After July, basically.
yeah, I mean, I just, you could just say there's a number of resolutions where the board has
Well-
responsibility.
we're not saying this board, we're saying the board.
Well,
So
and
whether
this
they
is
do it or whether
the next day
recommendations
do it.
for our committee, this category is for recommendations for us for work. And one of the things that we're noting is that part of our job is to review the tracker for all of the different resolutions, and that's what we're,
Well,
Not to resolve the problem.
yeah,
right?
I
This
would,
isn't specifically to the board. for
well,
this.
I would defer to, well, actually Bob and Jim on this frankly, but last year, when we moved all of these board resolutions that were just sort of lying around.
Right.
I mean, we sort of took the responsibility, if there was a change, we should put the change in there.
Right.
So assuming we follow the same, look, the board's not gonna do this on their own.
Right.
So we have to be the ones that sort of prod them along. So if that's the case, then, you know, this committee it has to be ready to, in a systematic version, you know, look at as they're coming due, saying, you know, we need a 2-month lead because there's got to be a first reading and a second reading. If you're not recommending any changes, you know, we can tell the board that. But if there's changes being recommended, then there's got to be a first reading and a second reading. So, but I think that responsibility lies with the committee.
I don't disagree with that, but our ability to look at a board resolution and recommend changes to it is going to be limited to things that are either really obvious or, you know, that we may have tangential knowledge of, right? If the board, in my opinion, should schedule these things out and look at it. This is how we claim we want to do business. Do we still want to do business this way? Yep, it's fine. Or actually, no. You know, we don't do business like this, or we don't want to do business like this, and we need to make some changes. And then they would send that to us and say, hey, can you change this and send it back
That's
to us?
not the way we did it last time.
No,
I don't disagree.
No.
In a perfect setting, that would be the case. There's nothing to suggest that this board or prior boards or succeeding boards are going to operate that way. If you want to keep, what I'm saying here is if you want to keep the tracker current, then it seems to me this committee has to be able to say, we are now telling the board we have reviewed, pick a number, I don't care, B03. We're not recommending any changes. Does the board agree? Board votes yes, the board votes no. But where we're recommending changes, we need to acknowledge there's got to be a first reading and a second reading, which means you've got to lay 2 months out.
No, I'm with you, but what I'm saying is both things need to happen.
Right.
We need to do our review, but we can't, I don't want the board to think that just because we did a review, that's the review.
Well, that's
Because there's gonna be aspects of it that we're not gonna be qualified
Well,
to
that-
review.
true, but that's the responsibility of both the board and frankly, council to come back and say,
To say, hey,
either this is not consistent with what we need to do, or there's more to do than and they will proffer something along those lines.
Right, but my concern is if we go to them and say, yeah, we looked at this, we don't see any issue, they go, okay, fine. And they don't even look at it.
That's up to them.
That's up to them. But what, if you go back, Keith,
It is.
Keith,
I mean,
if you go-
all you can do is say to them, it's your responsibility. This is what we say.
okay,
And if they agree with it, then fine, you're done for another 2 years. If they disagree, well, then you got to deal with it. I mean, I don't, unless, we're not in the position to dictate to the board, this is what, you should do this. I mean, all you're doing, at this point, all you're doing is, when you do your due diligence, if you don't see any need to make any changes, you're telling the board, bylaws committee sees that, does the board agree or does the board disagree? That's it. Now they may, but at that point, it's in their laps. I mean,
And if something
my,
goes.
my
through,
recollection
then
is there were a couple of resolutions where Doug said to me, just send an email to, I don't think, maybe it was to you, Laura, but maybe one to Jim. I don't remember. They said the board has reviewed this. No further action is required. And that's what I did. I don't.
I'm not disagreeing with you, Steve.
Yeah.
I don't
I
think
mean,
I'm
you may
saying,
not like the outcome.
no, I don't think I'm saying anything different than you.
Yeah.
I may be saying, I'm using different words than you, but I'm not disagreeing with you.
Mhm.
I just don't, we've got new people on the board who have not faced a huge pile of resolutions to review. And I want to make sure that we don't give them the mistaken impression that
The answer.
that there's not some level of responsibility on their part simply by the language that we use to address it. I agree with you is that we got to plan this out.
Mhm.
We need to come up with a kind of a milestone way to approach this so that we're not the cause of any of these being behind. I'm just saying, I think we need to be careful when we present our findings or lack thereof to the board, that we don't give them the impression that what we did to it is all inclusive.
Here's our
And that,
first review, you need
Yeah.
to do your
Well-
review to make sure they coincide,
yeah,
because we're not experts on
Well,
it per se.
I mean, I would like to tell you I remember this in all cases, but I probably don't. I mean, you would bring this to the board's attention by saying, again, pick a B03 is a resolution that the board has responsibility to review.
yeah,
Bylaws committee has reviewed B03
Yes.
and said, we don't recommend any changes. And then the board will, it'll be in the form of, I can do it in the form of a motion or whatever, and we'll go from there. I mean, the problem was, I initially started doing these as charging documents. And so they would go to the board, but as a charging document, there's no requirement for the board to act.
Mhm.
I mean, the bylaws committee is charging the board, but the board nothing ever happened. So we just started doing them as first readings and second readings. And
So is there any guarantee that if, as liaison, any liaison for any committee, that when that committee suggests or recommends and says, hey, there's this information to go over by for the board, because your next step is to what, send it directly just to the president? Or the whole board?
well,
Because
okay,
I have concerns that at times, I don't know if it's valid or not, but the impression at times has been given that the president is making a sole decision and not giving the whole board an opportunity to do their own due diligence, to review and vote and say, hey, we agree that there's no recommendations for changes on this one, or is it we're just trusting the word of whoever happens to be president at that time?
well, okay, I'm trying to, my recollection,
Mhm.
right? I'm old, so my memory is not what it once was, but my and I have a small desk too. But my recollection is that when this was raised with the board at a board meeting, president of the board at the time, which was Doug, said, just inform the bylaws committee. Board has reviewed this, there's no change. The board sees no reason to make any changes. That's what I did. Where we proffered on most of these resolutions, particularly, I think, the B resolutions for the most part,
Mhm.
when we proffered changes, for the most part, the board accepted them. The only one that I recall where there was an issue was the difference in having people on teams participating at board meetings versus meetings of the association, like the annual meeting. The annual meeting, they can participate and still be on team. Board meetings, they can't. For whatever reason. I mean, that was part of the debate. Most of the others, I think, sort of went through, I mean, we followed procedure, but they went through as suggested. Now, new council, he may want to spend more time reviewing. May be the case, but at some point, the committee is just doing what the committee is supposed to do. If the board doesn't do anything more than that,
It's on the board, right?
We're sort of stuck until we can prod something loose. But I mean, the way I look at it is the committee has the responsibility to push things in front of the board as it applies to these resolutions. Now, as to other committees, they're not dealing with resolutions. So they don't necessarily have to worry about first readings and second readings. They most of the time they bring an emotion up. So I mean, to some degree you could argue we have a unique responsibility, but that's.
Well, I think if you look at it, the history of it, way back when, we wanted to be sure that the committees generated what they wanted to change, and that was their call. For the board, when Jim was in charge and Marty was in charge, we decided we would look at them, and if we didn't see the need for change based on everything that we know and has come through us, we'd recommend to the board that we don't see the need for change, have Jim deliver it or whoever the liaison was, and it usually went right through. And if the board knows there's something going on with that they don't like, they're going to raise the issue then.
Right.
Yeah, I just, when I first started on this committee, there were so many times where like a board resolution would come up and I didn't know anything about it. And I'm not sure anybody else in the committee knew anything about it, but Jim would say, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
And Jim would go back through the history of Ocean Pines and he would bring up things that once he got done explaining them, clearly showed there was a problem with this resolution and needed to be changed. And I always thought, if he didn't know that, and he didn't bring that forward, it wouldn't get changed, because who would know?
Right.
So, I don't know, I just worry about that, now, maybe to your point, legal now is much more proactive. I mean, that may just resolve the issue there to a certain extent, because it's a possibility the board by default may just ask legal, hey, do you have any input on these? And if we don't and legal doesn't, then they may say good to go. Mm-hmm. But I would be much more comfortable with it if legal looked at them to try to catch some of that stuff, because I mean, I don't have Jim's brain or his archive. And
well, the way it works now
Nobody does.
Is, at least in my case, and I believe anything coming from the Bylaws Committee that is getting put on the board agenda for the first time is going to get sent to legal. Mm-hmm. Now, legal can, they're on at that point they're on notice. I don't foresee any chance that Bruce and his folks at the law firm are going to miss something like that. They will. They don't want it considered at that time. They will do so. If they think there's problems, they'll tell us. I mean, but like I said, we can't be dependent upon Jim to sort of raise these things. I mean, at some point we're going to be flying dark. I mean, You know, and we'll just have to go along as we go along. We have to change something, we'll change something.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's not a perfect situation, but, you know, Jim's a great resource,
Well, he was.
but he's also, I think, and I take, you know, he has tempered his comments to some degree as he's sort of moved away from the committee, which I think we have to accept as fact. I mean, that's just, yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
All right.
Everybody does the best they can.
Yeah.
And mistakes get made.
So is there anything to change then on number 2? Do I leave the M09 part in there? Number 3 is to provide visibility to the board liaisons and committee chairs on the status of past due resolutions. The committee will continue to include a copy of the updated governance document tracking form with the minutes of the bylaws and resolutions advisory committee monthly meetings when they are posted to the OPA website. Continue, and then number 4, continue to ensure that any / or all vacancies on our committee are filled. And then that's the bottom of it.
So how about this? So this is recommendations to us for what we're gonna do, right?
For
So
our-
why don't we add a line on here that says, develop a, review plan for,
Active motions.
for 15, board resolutions coming due in 2025.
That sounds
The
good.
time,
I just went through and I did a look.
yeah,
There's one coming due in January, 2 coming due in January. One coming due in February, and the one in February is that association manuals one that we just gave up on.
Yeah, but we never got any feedback.
So that's
on
gonna
that.
come back up.
yeah.
So anyway, that on, as far as this goes, we just add a line that says we're gonna develop a plan to look at these and to advise the board accordingly.
So I put it
Yeah.
after number 3, so the new 4 would be develop a review plan for the 15, or should I move that up under number 1? Continue to ensure,
No,
I'm sorry,
put it down
develop a
there.
review plan for the 15 board resolutions that are
Put
coming
it
due.
between
for
item
review
1
in
and 2,
2025. Right,
Yeah, put it between item 1 and 2.
put it between item 1 and 2.
Because that, you talk about it, now you're talking about a plan to make it happen, and then you're going on. Oh, man. But
I wonder if
Jim,
it ever happened.
but the problem is Jim was absolutely right. And he advocates for the things that should be done, but some of them, I mean, I have a document here that's 2 years old and nothing ever got done, and we continue to move on.
Yeah.
Because the board, the same thing, this committee can get an overload real quick, but imagine a board
Mhm.
trying to stay current with everything that's going on. And that's why you got a lawyer. The one thing you want to do is not go to court.
Okay.
And now you got too many unemployed lawyers looking for work. Excuse me.
No, I'm retired.
I'm tired.
Okay.
That's the tiny desk.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
As
Not
I-
not the big desk.
You got one there.
So I will update, I will send out this to everybody after today or tomorrow, or maybe Sunday, probably Sunday. Just because I'm on call with the hospital tonight and 24 hours starting tomorrow morning. So, so then, okay, so then the last thing, is there anything on the government tracker now that we need to document in today's meeting?
So I went through and I already updated the 3, or I marked up the 3 that we're gonna say no response. I'm gonna call today's date the review date for those 3 that you mentioned earlier.
Okay,
And I updated Racket and Sports, updated that language. And that was really the only updates on here. And what I will do prior to our next meeting is I will list out all these resolutions kind of in order of when they're gonna come due. So, and you maybe put that on the agenda for next
Yeah.
time, that we can kind of take an initial look at that and
Right.
You know,
we can
talk
have
through it, and
ready in
then-
Place, yeah,
I'll make sure to, CC Jim on that.
okay.
Yeah.
If he's got any archive on any of those that, you know, he can dig through and wants to pull up, that'd be helpful to those discussions, so we can do that.
Right.
And then you're going to email the elections committee board liaison, yep.
All right.
I'll get that off this weekend.
Okay, so date of the next meeting is Friday, November 8th.
November 8th. Oh, my grandson's birthday. We may have a problem.
Oh, well,
No, as far as I know, it's still good.
if we promise to keep it short.
I'll bring him. If I bring him, it'll be short.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
bring them
a,
along.
that's a,
How old is he?
He's the world's largest 2-year-old. He's like this big.
really.
Oh, yeah. For me, I'd say, yeah.
That. I think it take the start. Friday, February 4th, you know, being Valentine's Day, so. That we need to discuss before we, adjourn the meeting. Augie, you good?
Send me updated draft
Yes.
and an updated red line with all the attachments. I'm fine, I can work with this, you have to send this to me. Okay.
All right, so, Robert's rules has been reactivated. Is there any objection to, adjourning at 3:02 PM?
No.
All right, then we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Bye, Augie.
That was a
Bye,
very
Augie.
productive meeting.
Thanks.